Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host, Gershwan, and you are watching OneMindSyndicate. Today we continue talking about first encounters as we talk about the first encounter between the Tyranids and the Imperium of Man. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K content every single day. If you have any suggestions for first encounters, please comment down below. And if you enjoy our content, thank our patrons on Patreon. It's because of them that we can do this. If you guys want to support, link in the description. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the first encounter of the Tyranids. The first recorded contact between the Imperium of Man and the Tyranids occurred on the eastern fringe of Imperial space. To that point, Imperial records indicated that mankind was wholly ignorant of the terrible new threat that was emerging from the intergalactic void, and if any of the galaxy's older intelligent species, like the Eldar, were aware of the Tyranids' existence, they had never warned mankind of the terror that was to come. Yet High Fleet Behemoth had left plenty of evidence of its approach to the fringes of the Milky Way galaxy. Over the course of the solar decades that preceded the first contact on the planet of Tyron, Imperial explorators had performed a census of the star system surrounding the far-flung Adeptus Mechanicus outpost, located on the Tyron Primus. These explorators had discovered something curious, for entire worlds, known to have been once teeming with all manner of alien animals and plants, had been stripped bare, reduced to barren rocks floating in the vacuum of space. Not one speck of life, not even the simplest of bacteria, remained to be found. Though this anomaly was reported to the Explorator General of the Adeptus Administratum, no follow-up was ordered. The galaxy, in his eyes, was a place larger than a simple human mind can comprehend, and untold and unsolved mysteries abound. As always, the Administratum was as slow as any of the galactic-spanning bureaucracy can be. As the Mechanicus outposts on Tyron continued to file reports of their discoveries of large clusters of dead worlds, High Fleet Behemoth drew ever closer. The Tyranids had to this point consumed only isolated planets that were home to no intelligent life forms, using the biomatter they absorb to replenish the reserves the High Fleet had expended during the long journey through the intergalactic night. Now refreshed and replenished in number by their new stock of genetic materials, the Xenos descended upon Tyron Primus. This was only the first of the Imperium's worlds to fall to the Great Devourer, but would be the place from which mankind would name this new threat to its continued existence. That the Mechanicus outpost on Tyron had any warning of the impending attack was only due to their good fortune. A survey starship, returning from a survey of yet another dead world, encountered a cloud of unidentified objects as it entered the edge of the Tyron system. Though crippled by what seemed to be mines made of organic tissue on the very edge of the cloud, the Explorator vessel managed to limp back to the Imperial base in orbit of Tyron Primus, carry its dire warning. Several solar days later, the first full invasion of an Imperial world by a Tyranid High Fleet began. Yet the main outpost on Tyron Primus would not fall easily to these extragalactic predators. Located deep within the ruins of an ancient chain of volcanic islands, the Imperial base was heavily fortified to resist the fearsome storms and massive sea creatures of the ocean world's savage seas. Also given Tyron's position the very edge of Imperial space, in a very dangerous and unexplored frontier region of the galaxy, Tyron had been wisely provided with armaments deemed adequate to deter the attacks of raiders or aggressive Xenos. 4 giant planetary defense lasers protected the Tyron outpost, each protected in turn by hardened ceramite silos and void shield generators. The amount of firepower was further supported by 36 autocannons and las cannon interceptor emplacements, an overlapping network of defense bastions and Proteus-class bunkers. The Imperial garrison deployed on Tyron Primus was also formidable. In addition to the cybernetic Skitarii bodyguards of the outpost Adeptus Mechanicus commander, Magos Varnak, Tyron boasted 3 full wings of the Imperial Navy's Thunderbolt fighters, 3 Endeavour-class light cruisers, and an entire infantry regiment of the Astra Militarum. This was a standard garrison for a valued Imperial frontier outpost, and had been proven to be effective against most of the adversaries faced by the isolated Imperial troops in the Galactic Rim. Yet against the Great Devourer, this garrison would prove to be little more than a brief obstacle to its endless hunger. And finally, when the invasion came, Tyron's planetary defense lasers opened fire on the foe the moment the first alien bioship entered orbit over the ocean world. For more than a solar hour, The perpetually stormy skies of Tyron were ruptured again and again by the colored blast of coherent light as the base gunners desperately sought to drive back the descending Xenos invaders. Then, just as the defense lasers had begun to glow white-hot and overheat from the sheer number of targets, the invaders suddenly withdrew. Filled by overconfidence in his own forces and ignorant of the true scope of the threat, Magos Varnak ordered his small fleet of Imperial Navy cruisers to harry the withdrawing bioships, but this strategy proved to be a mistake. After penetrating the spore cloud that masked the sheer size of the approaching alien fleet, the pursuing Imperial starships discovered that less than a dozen of the strange organic spacecrafts had been destroyed out of the thousands present in the fleet that had entered the Tyron system. Having successfully lured the Imperial cruisers away from the support of the planet's defense laser emplacements, the bioships suddenly changed direction and fell upon the Imperial vessels like hungry sharks. The Emperor's Fist was the first Imperial starship to be destroyed, its hull shredded by voracious swarms of organisms vomiting forth by a smaller vessel. The righteous destiny did not last much longer, as clusters of grasping tentacles dragged it into the gaping maw of a hive ship. Only the Sword of Warriors lasted long enough to transmit a warning by Vox to Tyron. Before the message was completed, leech-like pseudopods gnawed through the starship's adamantium hull plates and unleashed a horde of vicious gene stealers onto the spacecraft's bridge and lower decks. The entire crew was slaughtered within minutes, and the cruiser was left to drift in space, unmanned, its precious biomatter already dissolved into the Hive Fleet's reserve stocks. With the Imperial cruisers lost, the Hive Fleet then returned to the Tyron orbit, and this time the Imperial defenses proved inadequate. Thousands of mycetic spores hurled down onto the world, and though the defense lasers managed to destroy many of the lethal pods, countless more crashed into the stormy seas. All around the Imperial Outpost, the waters boiled as the invaders burst from their spores and tore their way through the powerful maritime predators of Tyron's oceans, who were no match for the savagery of the Tyranids. Then the Xenos scaled the walls of the Imperial Outposts. At first, disciplined volleys of laser fire from the Imperial Guardsmen managed to drive the voracious creatures back, as amongst their numbers were veteran guardsmen from the jungle-covered death world of Catachan, long used to battling the similar monstrous fauna of their own homeworld. The guardsmen fought through the constant pouring rain, and their firepower scythed out massive holes within the alien lines. The hides of the smaller bioforms offered no protection at all from the concentrated laser fire, and were no match for the autocannons of the interceptor grid erected around the base. Wave after wave of hormigons and gene stealers were torn apart, and their corpses began to choke the carefully laid out killing zones that lay between the outpost bastions. Thunderbolt fighters soared through the air above the base, destroying any incoming spores with precision fire before darting away to fight a new target. And there were always more targets. But the Imperial defense began to crack when the Northern Planetary Defense Laser finally fell silent. Thousands of gargoyles had thrown themselves onto the barrel, clogging the gigantic beam projector with their own blackened bodies, an order given out by the hive mind. Moments later, the Eastern Planetary Defense Laser was destroyed when a Carnifex penetrated its steel walls and ripped apart the massive weapon's coolant lines. Despite their valiant efforts, the Thunderbolts eventually fell from the skies, their engines choked by spores or their pilots tore shrieking from their cockpits by harpies. As the Imperial Defense Network collapsed, the mycetic spores began to fall onto the outpost itself. Only a solar hour after all of this, the Imperial Outpost on Tyron Primus had been effectively overrun. The bastions had been destroyed, and all of the planet's defense lasers had gone silent. Even the Catachan jungle fighters of the Astra Militarum had finally abandoned their post and fled into the rain in hopes of an escape from the gruesome death that was following. Only the command bunker still stood, and its walls began to crack under the impacts of massive blows from some of the larger Tyranid bioforms. Through the few remaining displays that were functional, Magos Varnak saw the unstoppable tide of Xenos destroying his own impregnable outpost. Once the adamantium gate of the bunker crashed inward, the Tyranids poured into the command bunker. Imperial Guardsmen and cybernetic Scutari fought with flamers and in some cases their bare hands, but the sheer number of vicious aliens managed to hack, bite, and claw their way forward. As hormigons poured into the command center, Varnak whispered his last prayer to the Omnissiah and triggered a special switch that sent the data codex plummeting into the depths of what remained of the outpost before being torn apart. Magos Varnak's last words echo with dread. He stated, "We cannot live through this. Mankind cannot live through this. In a single day, they have covered this planet with a flood of living blades and needle-fanged mouths. Kill one, and 10 take their place. If they are truly without number, then our race is doomed to a violent death before every shred of our civilization is scoured away by a force more voracious than the fires of hell themselves. Death, by the machine god, death is here." The precious data within this codex would prove to be the Tyron Outpost's greatest legacy, for its video, pict, and data records of the first Tyranid assault would be found almost a full Terran year later by Inquisitor Kryptman, a man who would later dedicate his life to ending the Tyranid threat to humanity. Without Kryptman's arrival, the fate of the Tyran Outpost would never have been known, and the Imperium taken completely unaware of what was to come. Kryptman had found a sterile, dead planet that now bore no signs of the thriving oceans it once had. The planet had been literally sucked dry and scoured of life, every scrap of vegetation, and even the water consumed by the High Fleet as needed biomass and nutrients. As Inquisitor Kryptman reviewed the data codex he found in the outpost ruins, the full horror of the first Tyranid attack was revealed to him. The Inquisitor immediately left the ghost of Tyron behind to warn the galaxy of the Great Devourer's approach, a terror that Kryptman named the Tyranids after the first Imperial world they had consumed. The nightmare of the tyrannic wars had begun, and the Imperium would never be the same. And those were 40 facts on the first encounter of the Tyranids. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank our patrons, our Patreon. It's because of them that we can create these videos. If you guys want to support, link in the description. It's $1 a month and it goes a long way. So thank you ahead of time. If you guys have more suggestions for lore ideas, comment down below. And I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gersh1 with OneMindSyndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.